This video is brought to you by Squarespace. If you need a website or domain, go to squarespace.com. Hey everyone, and welcome to a new video. Do you find that your editing skills in Lightroom aren't what you'd like them to be, and you find that other people's editing work impressed you, but you can't seem to match it? In this video, I'm going to share the biggest technique you need to master to take your editing to the next level, one that all pros use, but most beginners don't. And I'm going to show you my 5-step process to put this technique into use. If you stay till the end, I'll show you how this technique can turn this into this. My name is Simon D'Entremont, and I'm a professional nature and wildlife photographer living in Eastern Canada. I make weekly videos giving you photo tips or taking you behind the scenes for nature photography. Subscribe if you want to see more. So what is this method that all the pros use, but many amateurs haven't mastered yet? It's to learn how to edit your subject and the rest of the photo differently. Ask any processing expert and they will tell you you need to edit different parts of the image differently. That is, move away from global adjustments to the whole image and toward local adjustments that only affect a selected part of the photo. Before I give you the 5 best ways to use this tip, let's look at the main tools we need to use to separate elements of your photo and process them differently using local adjustments in Lightroom. These are usually done in Lightroom using masks. Here's a photo of a sea stack I photographed in my neighboring province of New Brunswick in Eastern Canada. Let's see what tools are available for us to selectively choose what parts of the image we want to process differently. First, let's look at the masking tool to select a subject or object. All you need to do is go here to the masking tool, and within that, click Select Subject. Your selection will show off in red if you press the O key on your keyboard. Now, as you can see, I can change the exposure level on the subject only. You can also use the Select Object tool and give a rough painting of the object you want to select, and Lightroom will select it for you. Secondly, you can use this tool to select the background or the sky. Right here, masking tool, click Sky. And as you can see, selected the sky where you may want to lower the exposure, for example, here in this contrasty situation to make the sky colors pop a bit more. Thirdly, you can use the masking tool to select certain colors. We hit Mask, Range, Color Range. And then you use the dropper to select the color you want to select. I'll pick this orange here in the distance. Then you can use the Refine tool to refine how actively you select that exact color. I will move it over to the left to just select the most orange part of the sky, and now I can adjust it differently by changing the color temperature, for example, or the saturation level, or the brightness, for example. Fourth, you can use masks to select certain luminance levels, that is brightness levels in your image. In the masking tool, range, luminance range. Then you use the dropper to select a certain brightness level. For example, let's say I only want to select the brightest parts of the image. There's also an adjustment tool here, which you can use to adjust your selection to limit it more to the most bright parts of the image or expand it or feather it a little bit more. Here, now I can adjust only the brightest parts of the image, leaving the darkest parts of the image untouched. And fifth, you can select parts of the image using the brush tool. This is how we used to do it before these wonderful automatic mask features were developed. So with a brush, you can select brush, and then you can just paint the parts of the image that you want to adjust. So let's say I wanted to paint this rock structure here, and I'll do a very crude job here, and now I can apply, for example, some extra exposure only to the parts that I've brushed. But now that these new automatic selection masks have been developed to select your subject, or the sky, or certain colors, or certain brightness levels, I use the brush tool less than I used to. So now we've seen 5 different tools that we can use to make selections in our photo, selecting certain parts of the image for processing rather than others. Now let's look at the 5 situations where treating the subject and the rest of the image differently makes sense. Here are 2 bee-eaters I photographed in Kenya earlier this year. They were backlit by the sun very late in the day with a dark background. And the backlighting helped show off the beautiful feather feature in the wings as they landed on this branch. In processing, I would like to accentuate this feature of the bright parts showing up in the wings, but I would like the background to be darker to be able to show off this feature more prominently. Let's look at how we can use these tools that I showed you earlier to achieve this effect. Let's start off by cropping the photo to taste, something like this. I'd like to thank the sponsor of this video, Squarespace. I built my very own website using Squarespace and it was a breeze. A website is just a great way to have a professional place online where you can show off your work, your service, or even your personal brand. Social media are often showing you or your work in short clips or photos or little thumbnails, and sometimes makes it difficult to monetize as they may not want links to external sites. A website is a permanent home for you and your work and your brand, presented in galleries or on pages designed by you that show them off at their best. There are lots of useful templates, including ones for specific genres, like photography, which is my genre. Or you can be more daring and artistic, and you can go outside the templates using the new AI feature called Squarespace Blueprint to help you personally curate your own build. It's also a great way to monetize your work by setting up an online store so you can take payments by credit card or PayPal from all over the world. And now with a new added feature of buy now and pay later with ClearPay and Afterpay. Go to squarespace.com to sign up for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Simon for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. The first way we can use more local adjustments is to affect the saturation and colors differently in different parts of the image. In this photo, I love how the orange from the sunset is reflected in the bird's wings. I'm going to make a selection of that color in particular to be able to adjust it differently. Using the masking tool, click Range, Color Range, and I use the dropper tool to select the color in the wings. Now I can adjust the exposure differently. I can adjust the color temperature differently. I can adjust the saturation of those colors independently of changing anything else in the photo. Here, a bit of saturation looks really good in those wings. I can refine the mask, again by using the Refine tool right here. Or let's say I wanted the brighter lime-colored leaves here to pop out a little more. I could use the Mask tool, click the plus sign here to add another mask, click Color Range, and select the green of these leaves. Now I can raise the exposure on them if I want, or I can increase the saturation on those leaves to make them pop a little bit more out of the frame, like this. Another reason to use more selective masks to process your subject and the background differently might be in adjusting the white balance. Let's say I wanted a warmer background to be able to better complement the beautiful color in the wings. I could adjust globally the temperature slider to the right like here, but that makes everything warm, the background and the foreground. What if we were able to adjust just the background white balance but not affect the birds? We will use the masking tool to select the background, and now I will move the temperature slider to the right and make the background a much more complementary color to go with the color in the wings of the birds. That looks pretty good right there. The cooler look of the breast of the birds compared to the warm background. Another reason to use more selective local adjustments is to change the brightness levels of your subject and the background independently. In this particular photo, making a dark background will make the bird's wings pop out against them much more. Let's see how we do that. Now I'll make a mask using the background selection tool. Note that if your mask doesn't work out perfectly, like how it managed the tail of the bird here, you can adjust the mask by clicking on the mask itself, clicking on the plus sign to be able to add to the mask, and I'll select the brush, and here I will just brush in a little bit of the mask to try to make it a little bit more refined. There we go. And now with having the background only selected, I can lower the exposure on the background and see how it makes the birds pop from the frame. Another area where selection should be applied more locally is in sharpening and noise reduction. Often your foreground elements or your subject looks good with a little bit of sharpening to make it appear clear and vivid, whereas noise reduction should be applied more generously to the background, where in those smooth surfaces, noise is more easily visible. Let's see how we can do that in this photo. We can use the Select Subject feature and apply just a little bit of sharpness and maybe a little bit of clarity, which includes a little bit of sharpening on the subject only. Whereas for noise reduction, we will select the background again, or you can go back to one of your previous background masks and apply a little bit of noise reduction selectively just to the background so we don't soften the image of our subjects. Now you can see here on the right that I actually haven't made any global adjustments to this photo. All of the adjustments were made selectively. And if we look at the before and after, we've really been able to accentuate the subject in the frame, make them pop from the background, and in my opinion, make a much more interesting photo. And finally, here's a bonus tip. Don't forget that you can get more accurate with masks using the intersect with function and have the adjustments apply to the area where two masks overlap. Again, pressing O on the keyboard shows you which area the adjustments will be applied to. Here's an example. Here's a photo of a line I took in Botswana just last week, and I wanted to accentuate in this photo the direction in which the light is coming by making the right side of the image brighter and the left side of the image darker. One of the ways to do this would be to darken the left-hand side of the line. But how do we do this? How do we select just part of our subject? Have a look. Using the mask tool, I will select the subject first, which he does a pretty good job of doing. And now I will right-click on the mask and hit Interet Mask With, and I'll choose a linear gradient. Then I will pull the linear gradient to just cover the left-hand side of the subject. Now the only area where adjustments will be applied will be the area that overlaps between the two. And now you can see I can darken the left-hand side of the line, and it will really accentuate the light coming from the right-hand side. I could do the same thing by brightening the right-hand side of the line. If you found this video deserving, give it a like and YouTube will share it with even more photographers, helping them take their processing to the next level. And I hope that you can use these tips the very next time you come home with photos, allowing you to process your own unique and amazing photos just like a pro. I know you can do it.